If you're over 60, there's one everyday movement that might seem healthy, even harmless, but it could quietly raise your risk of a stroke overnight. No pain, no warning, no second chance. You could go to bed feeling fine and wake up unable to speak, move your arm, or recognize your own family. As a brain doctor with over 30 years of experience treating stroke victims, I can tell you that the cases that haunt me most aren't caused by smoking or bad diets. No. What really hits me is seeing how routines and exercises recommended for years, movements that were supposed to help you age gracefully, become invisible traps for the brain. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 common exercises that could be putting your brain at risk, even if you feel strong, even if you think you're doing everything right. Because at this stage in life, what used to be healthy might now be dangerous. And this, believe me, might be the most important health message you hear all year. Want to protect your independence and quality of life? Have you ever wondered if something as simple as stretching, picking up a box, or doing yoga could actually change your fate overnight? Stick with me, because the information I'm about to share could save your life or someone you love. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. And if at any point this video helps, let me know in the comments by typing a 1. If not, type a 0 to let me know how I can improve the content for you. Many people think the greatest danger is smoking or eating junk food. But the reality is different. Some of the exercises that are most recommended for older adults could be speeding up the risk of a stroke, especially if they're done at the wrong time or in the wrong way. Why could a simple stretch do so much damage? What changes happen in your body after 60 that turns safe movements into hidden risks? Get ready, because the answer might surprise you. The hidden danger in daily movements. For years, medicine and common sense have taught us that the key to aging well is staying active, moving every day, exercising, and not letting age slow us down. And in many ways, that's true. But here's the big twist. What no one tells you is that after 60, your body doesn't respond the same way. What was once healthy can now turn into a hidden threat to your brain. And it's not meant to scare you, but rather to open your eyes to a truth that very few doctors explain clearly. Think about this. After turning 60, blood vessels lose their elasticity, the heart no longer pumps with the same strength, and the sensors that regulate blood flow to the brain, called baroreceptors, become slower and less accurate. This means that certain movements or exercises could cause your brain to temporarily go without the oxygen it needs to function. That brief moment of lack of oxygen can be enough for clots to form or for pressure to rise to dangerous levels. Perhaps you grew up believing that stretching in the morning, bending forward to touch your toes, doing yoga, walking every day, or picking things up around the house was always beneficial. But the truth is, as you age, many of these movements, which were once harmless, can now trigger a stroke, especially if they are not adapted to your body's new reality. The most shocking part is that these risks don't usually come with pain or a clear warning. In fact, most of the time everything seems fine. Until suddenly you can't speak, you can't move a part of your body, or you lose consciousness. This isn't a matter of weakness or lack of will. It's just biology. Your body changes after 60, and that change demands a new strategy for movement and brain care. So, in this video, I want you to start looking at your daily movements with new eyes. We're going to analyze, one by one, the most common exercises and routines that could be putting your well-being at risk. And most importantly, I will show you how to protect yourself and keep your independence for many years to come. Exercise 1. Forward bends and stretches. Among all the movements that seem harmless, there is one that might be the most dangerous and the least suspected. Bending forward to touch your toes, picking something up from the ground, or stretching after waking up. Does this sound familiar? How many times have you done this thinking it's the best thing for your flexibility and health? Let me tell you about a patient I will never forget. Mr. Eduardo Millstone, 74, was a retired teacher, a lover of history, and had his little daily rituals. Every day, as soon as he woke up, he would stretch his back by bending forward and touching his toes 5 or 6 times. For him, it was a symbol of youth and vitality. One day, after his usual stretch, he felt a slight dizziness, but he ignored it. Hours later, while he was gardening, he suddenly collapsed. When he arrived at the hospital, he couldn't move his right arm or leg. Tests showed he had suffered an ischemic stroke. A clot had blocked blood flow to the part of his brain that controls movement. What caused it? His blood pressure had dropped too much that morning, and his blood was thicker than usual due to mild dehydration. How can something so everyday lead to such a serious situation? The key lies in the baroreceptors, the sensors that regulate blood flow to the brain. As we age, they lose sensitivity, and when you quickly bend forward, blood moves toward the legs, and your body doesn't react quickly enough to bring it back to the brain. You might feel a little dizzy, or you might not feel anything at all. But inside, your brain is suffering from a temporary lack of oxygen. If this happens often, the risk of clots increases, especially if you are dehydrated or taking blood pressure medication. The real problem is that these little clots can go unnoticed until one of them blocks a major artery. Suddenly, what seemed like a simple stretch ends up with a loss of strength, problems speaking, or even permanent paralysis. Mr. Eduardo regained some mobility after months of rehabilitation, but he never fully recovered the use of his right hand. In his own words, "I thought stretching was saving me, but it almost cost me my life." This story isn't to scare you, it's to open your eyes. The body after 60 needs adapted routines. A movement that made you feel good at 40 can be dangerous at 70. Especially if you're dehydrated or on blood pressure medication. If you need to bend down, do it slowly, breathing deeply, and if possible, sit down to put on your socks or shoes instead of bending over from a standing position. And one crucial point. If you feel dizzy when bending down, stop immediately. It's not a small symptom. It's your brain sending an alarm. The true threat isn't dramatic stretching. It's the silent accumulation of blood pressure drops and small clots. The most devastating strokes don't often announce themselves with severe pain. They come after seemingly healthy routines that are done without the necessary adaptation. And if this simple stretch can put your brain at risk, imagine what happens with more extreme postures, like those in inverted yoga poses, where the blood flow goes directly to the head. Don't go anywhere, because what's coming next could save your eyesight, speech, and even your independence. Exercise 2. Inverted yoga poses. Yoga is famous for its benefits to the body and mind, and for many older adults, it has become an essential routine to feel agile and maintain calm. However, there's one type of pose that, instead of rejuvenating you, can put your brain in serious danger. Inverted poses. Maybe you've seen them or even practiced them. Legs up against the wall, the downward dog pose, or simply bending your head below your heart. They are marketed as relaxing movements, but for those over 60, these poses can cause a sudden increase in pressure inside the skull and, with it, a chain of invisible problems that can end in a stroke. Let me tell you the story of Mrs. Evelia Torres, 74, a retired teacher full of energy, passionate about crafts and a healthy lifestyle. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Evelia attended a gentle yoga class for seniors. She loved the environment, the calm music, and the sense of community. But one day, during a pose where she rested her legs on the wall and lowered her head, she felt a sharp pain behind her eyes. She thought little of it and continued with the class. That night, her daughter found her confused, unable to speak clearly, and with a vacant expression. At the hospital, tests showed a small hemorrhage in the back of the brain, right where an increase in pressure can cause silent but devastating damage. In her case, The combination of blood pressure medication and the inverted pose created the perfect storm. Her blood vessels were no longer as elastic and couldn't withstand the added pressure. A clot formed, the vessel ruptured, and the damage was immediate. Evelia survived, but she lost part of her vision in one eye and struggles with speech. What's most painful is that no one had warned her that, although yoga is considered gentle, certain poses can be anything but safe for a body that has already changed with age. No one asked her if she had a history of hypertension or explained that lowering her head below her heart caused blood to pool in the skull, raising pressure to dangerous levels. The problem with inverted poses is that self-regulation in the brain is no longer the same as before. When you're young, the body compensates quickly for any change in position. But as you age, even a few minutes with your head below your heart can cause blood to accumulate and oxygen to stop circulating properly. If you have hypertension, hidden aneurysms, or take medication that affects pressure, the risk multiplies. What can you do to protect yourself? First, always ask if the instructor is trained in teaching seniors. If you have a history of cardiovascular or neurological issues, avoid poses that put your head below your heart. Opt for seated or lying alternatives that offer the same benefits without the extreme risks. And if you feel dizziness, pressure behind your eyes, or fatigue after a session, listen to your body. It's not exaggerating, it's sending you an alert. The lesson is clear. Yoga can be your ally, but only if you adapt the poses to your current reality. And if you thought the risks were only in complicated exercises, wait until you hear about the next hidden danger. Lifting something as common as a shopping bag or a box could elevate your pressure in seconds and trigger a stroke without you even realizing it. Exercise 3. Lifting heavy objects. Nothing gives you more pride than feeling self-sufficient in your golden years. Carrying shopping bags, helping with grocery boxes, or lifting your grandchildren. Small actions that seem to confirm that you're still strong, capable, and useful. But here's the hidden problem. Lifting weights suddenly, without preparation or with a forceful effort, can trigger a dangerous spike in blood pressure in just seconds, even if the object isn't that heavy. Let me tell you about Mr. Jorge Paquette, a retired firefighter of 82 years. He was always a symbol of strength and never asked for help. One day, he decided to take a heavy box of cans down from his car. Nothing out of the ordinary. However, in the middle of lifting, he felt an intense pain in his head, lost strength in his arm, and collapsed. In the emergency room, the diagnosis was clear. Ischemic stroke, triggered by a clot that traveled up to one of the most important arteries in the brain. What happened? The blood pressure spiked suddenly, and a small piece of arterial plaque, accumulated over the years, broke off and blocked the blood flow to the brain. This happens because when lifting heavy objects, many people unknowingly hold their breath and strain. This is called the Valsalva maneuver, and it creates a pressure wave that directly affects the blood vessels, including those that supply the brain. For a young body, this is usually manageable. But with stiffened arteries, small lesions, or years of hypertension, that sudden increase in pressure can trigger a medical emergency. What's most alarming is that most people don't feel pain or discomfort immediately. It may seem like just fatigue or mild dizziness, but in reality, the damage might already be done. A damaged blood vessel, a tiny tear, or a loose clot. In just minutes, you could lose the ability to speak, move, or even face permanent consequences. The message here is not to stop being independent, but to be smart and careful. You're not risking anything by asking for help. On the contrary, caution protects you. Use carts, divide the weight between several bags, and never hesitate to ask for assistance when carrying bulky items. And very important, never hold your breath while straining. If you feel dizzy, weak, or have pressure in your chest or neck after carrying something, take it seriously. Stop and seek help. It's not just tiredness, it could be a silent warning from your brain. Mr. Jorge survived, but today he walks with a walker and speaks much more slowly. He regained some lucidity, but lost part of his mobility and independence. He always repeats, "Out of pride, I lost everything I valued most." So remember, your strength isn't measured by how many kilos you lift, but by your ability to protect yourself and make wise decisions. And if a simple physical effort can be so dangerous, what happens when the risk arises from the most common and everyday movement of all? Standing up from a chair? Stay tuned, because the next mistake is one you likely make several times a day, and it could change your life in seconds. Exercise 4. Standing up quickly from a chair. There are movements so automatic that you don't even think about them. You get up from the table after eating, you stand up from the chair to answer the phone, or you get up to go to the bathroom. You do this over and over again, every day. However, after 60, this simple act can turn into a hidden risk for your brain, especially if you do it quickly and without support. I want you to hear the story of Mrs. Carolina Jensen, a retired school principal, always active and committed to staying independent. On the recommendation of her physiotherapist, she started practicing sit-to-stand exercises to improve her leg strength and balance. At first, everything was fine. But one morning, after a few rapid repetitions, she stood up in a hurry and felt strange weakness all over her body. Within seconds, half of her body lost strength and her speech became unclear. At the hospital, the diagnosis was clear: ischemic stroke caused by a clot lodged in a critical brain artery. Her blood test revealed signs of inflammation and mild dehydration. The cause: standing up too quickly, without allowing the blood to properly return to the brain. What really happens in the body when you stand up quickly? When you stand up abruptly, gravity causes blood to move toward the legs and lower organs. When you're young, your body compensates immediately, adjusting the pressure and sending blood back to the brain. But after 60, that reaction becomes slower and weaker. If you have hypertension, diabetes, take diuretics, or are simply dehydrated, your brain may go without oxygen for a few seconds. In those seconds, you may feel dizzy, disoriented, or even faint. But sometimes, without fainting, a clot can form that travels to the brain and causes serious damage. This is why it's so important to change the way you stand up. Don't do it quickly. Before standing, support yourself with your arms if possible. Take a deep breath, and wait a few seconds before walking. Allow your brain time to adjust to the change in posture. If you ever feel dizzy, sit down immediately, hydrate, and don't ignore that signal. Many programs for older adults recommend precisely this exercise of standing up and sitting down repeatedly, but very few warn about the dangers of doing it too quickly or without support. If your therapist recommends these movements, make sure you do them slowly and controlled, always listening to your body. Mrs. Carolina managed to recover with effort, but she still has difficulties walking and speaking fluently. Her family now accompanies her and supervises these exercises, adapting them to her new pace. The lesson is simple but vital. Haste is the enemy of the brain. Changing the speed and way you stand can protect your independence for many more years. And if you think the risk ends here, get ready, because the next dangerous movement is one of the most recommended, but also one of the most deceptive when done in hot or humid conditions. Walking. Exercise 5. Walking in the heat or humidity. Walking is one of the most recommended exercises for health, especially in older adults. Going for a morning walk, stretching your legs, breathing in fresh air. It all seems to indicate that there's no risk. But did you know that walking in the heat or humidity can turn this healthy habit into a silent danger for your brain? Let me share with you the case of Mr. Hernan Duran, a retired mailman of 84 years and an example of discipline. Every day after eating, he would walk several blocks in his neighborhood. It was his ritual, and he never missed it, no matter the season. But one particularly hot summer, after his walk, he went to bed, and when he woke up, he couldn't get up. He couldn't speak well, and his right arm was immobile. In the hospital, the diagnosis was clear. Ischemic stroke caused by a clot formed due to dehydration and the thickness of his blood after exercising in hot weather. Mr. Ernon had sweated more than usual but hadn't replenished liquids. His arteries, already stiff from aging, couldn't adapt, and the thicker blood favored the formation of the clot. Why does this happen? As we age, the sensation of thirst diminishes, and the body loses its ability to regulate temperature and fluids properly. Additionally, many older adults take medications like diuretics or blood pressure medications, which increase the risk of dehydration. When you walk under the sun or in high humidity, you sweat more than you realize, your blood thickens, circulation slows down, and instead of oxygenating the brain, you may encourage the formation of clots. It's not about stopping walking. It's about doing it intelligently. How can you protect yourself? Hydrate before and after heading out. If it's very hot or humid, walk during cooler hours, bring water with you, and add a pinch of salt or drink coconut water to replace electrolytes. If, after walking, you feel weak, dry, have a pasty mouth, or are dizzy, don't ignore it. These are signals from your body warning you. Mr. Ernon survived, but now he needs help walking and has to be much more careful with his hydration. Remember, even the healthiest habits require adjustments in older age to remain safe. Exercise 6. Sudden neck rotations. Have you ever felt your neck stiff after sleeping or sitting for a long time? You've probably been recommended to gently rotate or turn your head to loosen up your muscles. It seems harmless, but for many older adults, neck circles or sudden rotations can be an extremely dangerous movement. Let me tell you the story of Mr. Dennis Loya, a 72-year-old retired musician, always enthusiastic about physical well-being. Every morning, after brushing his teeth, he would do neck rotations to maintain flexibility. One day, while rotating his neck in a circular motion, he felt a snap behind his ear and suddenly became dizzy. Within seconds, he lost coordination and couldn't speak clearly. At the hospital, the diagnosis was clear. Vertebral artery dissection, a small tear in one of the deep arteries in the neck, which formed a clot and caused a stroke in the part of the brain that controls balance and coordination. Why does this happen? The vertebral arteries, which supply blood to the brain, pass through narrow channels in the cervical spine. As we age, these arteries become more fragile and less elastic, especially if you take medications like blood thinners, statins, or have a history of hypertension. When you make large or quick rotations with your head, you might stretch these arteries more than necessary. A single bad twist or a sudden rotation can cause a microtear inside, where a clot forms and travels to cause significant damage. What's the recommendation? Avoid full neck rotations, especially those that involve jerky or circular movements. Instead, gently turn your head from side to side, maintaining a natural range of motion and without forcing it. If you feel dizziness, cracking, or new neck pain, stop the exercise immediately. Mr. Dennis survived, but since then, he uses a wheelchair and can only play the piano with one hand. His story is a warning. A seemingly simple movement can change your life in seconds. Take care of your neck as your most valuable asset. And remember, if this stretch can be so risky, wait until you hear about the next one. High-intensity workouts that promise youth but can overload your brain and heart in seconds. Exercise 7. High-intensity workouts. HIIT. In recent years, high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, has gained a lot of popularity, even among older adults, thanks to videos and programs promising to burn fat and rejuvenate the body in no time. But, is it really safe for everyone? The truth is, for most older adults, HIIT can be a ticking time bomb for the brain and the heart. Let me tell you the story of Mr. Daniel Whitaker, 74, a former steelworker determined to stay active. His daughter gave him a DVD with HIIT routines adapted for seniors: marching in place, fast squats, and arm movements. At first, he felt rejuvenated, but after a few weeks, during one of those intense sessions, he ended up completely exhausted and dizzy. Minutes later, he fainted in the kitchen. In the hospital, the diagnosis was clear: ischemic stroke. His blood pressure had risen abruptly during the high-intensity intervals, and a small clot, triggered by this pressure wave, blocked a vital brain artery. Why does this happen? During HIIT exercises, the heart rate and blood pressure rise and fall quickly. For a young body, this is manageable. But in a body with stiffened arteries, a history of hypertension, diabetes, or simply aging, these rapid changes can damage the inner walls of blood vessels, causing microtears. The body responds by forming clots, and if one of them travels to the brain, the outcome can be devastating. The advertising of HIIT for seniors promises miraculous results, but doesn't warn about the real danger for those who are not physically prepared. If, after an intense workout, you feel dizziness, extreme fatigue, chest pressure, or difficulty breathing, don't ignore it. It's an urgent message from your body. What can you do instead? Opt for low-impact activities with a steady pace. Gentle walks, resistance exercises with bands, tai chi, calm swimming, or slow-paced dancing. What's important is consistency and safety, not intensity. Mr. Daniel survived, but today he depends on speech and movement therapies. The cost was high, but his story serves as a reminder. In older age, exercise must be adapted to your reality, not to the latest trend. Get ready, because there are 2 more movements that seem harmless but could change your life in an instant if you don't take precautions. Exercise 8. Cold stretching. Are you someone who starts the day by stretching as soon as you get out of bed? Or before walking or playing golf? Do you stop to do long, deep stretches? Even though we've always heard that stretching is good, doing it with a cold body can be a dangerous trap for older adults. Let me tell you about Mrs. Eulalia Granger, a 78-year-old former piano teacher who was very active in her community. One morning before her usual walk, she decided to follow an online stretching routine. She touched her toes, stretched her legs and arms, but without even walking for a few minutes first. She felt fine at first, but shortly after starting her walk, she began feeling dizzy and lost her balance. At the hospital, the diagnosis was a minor stroke. Tests revealed dehydration and signs of vascular stress, a reaction of blood vessels to stretching when they're still cold and constricted. Why does this happen? When the body is cold, blood circulation slows and vessels become stiff. If you stretch suddenly, you force muscles and arteries to expand before they're ready, which can cause microtears or changes in local blood pressure. In older adults, especially those with a history of hypertension, diabetes, or vascular issues, this small shock can make blood flow irregularly and trigger clots. Add to this that most seniors are somewhat dehydrated in the morning, thickening the blood and increasing the risk. What's the recommendation? Never start your day or exercise routine with intense cold stretching. First, walk slowly around the house, move your arms gently, and drink water. Let your circulation wake up. Save deep stretches for after you've moved a bit, when your body is warm and ready. Mrs. Eulalia recovered but now needs help walking and no longer goes out alone. Her story is a warning for everyone. Good intentions aren't enough. Order and preparation matter too. The next risk is just as common: unsupported balance exercises, which can lead to a fall. And that fall can trigger a stroke. Exercise 9. Unsupported balance exercises. We've all heard that balance exercises are essential for preventing falls in older adults. And it's true, But there's one detail that can turn a good habit into danger: doing them without support or supervision. Take the story of Mr. Walter Harris, an 81-year-old Navy veteran who decided to improve his balance by watching online videos. One day, inspired by a challenge, he tried standing on one leg for 30 seconds, with no nearby surface for support. His foot slipped, he fell sideways, and lightly hit his head on a table. At first, he just felt dazed, but that night, he couldn't move his right arm or speak clearly. In the ER, he was diagnosed with a stroke caused by a clot that formed after the fall and traveled to his brain hours later. Why does this happen? In older adults, even a minor fall can trigger a bodily reaction. Blood pressure rises, stress hormones surge, and blood vessels become more prone to clotting, especially if there's slight trauma to the head, hips, or spine. Sometimes, the stroke doesn't happen at the moment of the fall but overnight, as the body tries to repair damage and microclots form. If one reaches the brain, the outcome can be devastating. The lesson is clear: balance exercises are valuable, but always do them with caution and support. Use a sturdy chair, bar, or table, or practice under supervision. Never do them on slippery surfaces or barefoot. If you feel unsteady, sit and rest. Mr. Walter survived but lost some independence and now needs therapy to regain basic skills. He tells everyone, "If I'd used a chair, I'd still be the same as before." Remember, the goal isn't just to strengthen your body but to avoid falls and their hidden consequences. In older age, safety must always come first, even in the simplest movements. If you've made it this far, I say from the heart, congratulations. You care about your health, your future, and the well-being of those around you. That's the first and most important step to living longer and better. Together, we've explored 9 seemingly harmless exercises that could change your life overnight if not adapted to your current reality. The truth: aging doesn't mean fragility, it means change. Your blood vessels don't respond the same way. Your brain needs steady oxygen, and your body needs stability. What was once routine may now hide risks. But the answer isn't fear, it's knowledge and prevention. What should you do? Always warm up first. Walk, move your arms, and activate circulation before stretching or exercising. Take your time, rise slowly, use support, and let your body adjust to each movement. Avoid sudden neck motions or inverted poses. Opt for gentle stretches and age-adapted yoga. Stay hydrated before, during, and after exercise. Don't wait until you're thirsty. Water keeps blood flowing smoothly. Ask for help with heavy lifting. Independence matters, but so does wisdom. Use tools, distribute weight, and never overdo it alone. Do balance exercises only with support. Preventing falls is key to avoiding serious complications. Consult your doctor about new routines. Adapt exercises if you take meds or have hypertension, diabetes, or cardiovascular issues. Remember, it's not about moving less, it's about moving smarter and respecting your body. Every small adjustment could give you years of healthy, independent living. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which tip surprised you most? Which will you try first? Let me know in the comments. If this helped, leave a 1. For more tips like this, subscribe, like, and share so others can protect their brains and live fully. Thank you for your time and trust. Caring for your brain is caring for your life and freedom. See you in the next video, with more health advice that could change your destiny.